Good evening and welcome to Universal Spiritualism and Edify Your Soul. I'm Veronica Jenkins and my colleague here is Laurie Smith. Hi, Laurie.
Hello. Hi, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Although I have to say good afternoon. Not quite evening yet.
I'm in the UK, so it's evening with me and it's afternoon with Laurie. And if you're watching us from Australia, then I guess it's going to be in the middle of the night with you.
I think so.
So thank you for joining us if you're halfway through your sleep time. Okay, we have an evening tonight of discussion and questions and answers. We're going to have a discussion about ethics in mediumship. So if you have any questions at all that you would like to put to us, please do. Can't guarantee that we'll answer them in the way that you want it or need it, but you'll get what we feel is the right answer from our experience. I've been a spiritualist medium for over 30 years, and I sort of in my early 20s found the Spiritualist Church in the UK and sort of evolved through that, and very much my background is from the Spiritualist National Union in the UK. So a lot of my opinions will have come from that, but I am not part of that group, and therefore any views I have do not reflect theirs. And do need to say that, or else they might get quite upset with me, because I know there are certain points that we view quite differently on things. Laurie, if I can ask you to introduce yourself and let us know a little bit about your background.
Well, it's interesting. We do have very different backgrounds, but I'm sure a lot of similarities in what we're going to talk about. I've been a medium for about 10 years now. I did not grow up that way. The abilities came upon me quite quickly. Oh, someone's saying we're breaking up. I wonder, are you able to see me?
Yes, I can see you absolutely fine this end.
All right. Sorry about that. I just got a notice. So yeah, they came on after a brain injury, and it was just something that I knew. It wasn't related to any particular belief or religion. It was just something I can do. And since then, I've been doing readings. I teach classes, and it's really become my life. So we'll see where this goes. I thought it was interesting the way we planned this. I can tell everyone. We were meeting about something else completely. And right before we came on, I just had this knowing. And I said, Veronica, we need to do a talk about ethics and mediumship. You were like, okay. So here we are. We didn't plan it. We're just going to talk and see what comes of it. Hopefully we'll get some questions.
Absolutely. If we can perhaps start by exemplifying what is the best in mediumship and the best that we see from people as they're both learning and as developed mediums. And certainly for myself, what I feel I love seeing in mediumship is where a medium and the person that they're reading for has a real deep, profound connection. And the person that they're reading for is able to recognize the loved one in spirit, that there is a emotional bond going on, as well as the evidential recognition. And I think when we're talking about ethics, that has got to be a fundamental part of it, that we ethically bound by the needs of the people that we're reading for. It's not us as people that make those decisions, but we are filters, and just because we get information does not mean that we have to give that information in the way that it was given, because especially public forums, there is levels of decency and respect that we should be recognizing and following. And when it's private readings, I can go with there's slightly different boundaries at that point, but certainly in public arenas such as circles, practice circles, and services online through Zoom and Facebook live readings. There's expectations of behaviour from a medium in how they present the information that they're receiving. I don't know whether you feel the same there, Laurie?
Absolutely. Here, I don't know if it's similar by you, but here in the US, they do a lot of psychic parties. Mediums will go to someone's house, they'll have a ladies' night, they'll have dinners, things like that. And it's very different than doing a one-on-one. Different, of course, than doing it in a church service, but nonetheless, we have to respect spirit, but also remember there's a person still living here, having this human experience in front of us, and we need to make sure we're keeping them in mind, their well-being.
Absolutely.
But, if you don't mind, I'm going to back up even a moment. I think ethics definitely start before the reading even starts. Just little things like introducing yourself, making it clear how you work, telling them what to expect, and knowing when it's not a good fit. Like you said, there has to be that bond, that emotional bond. And I think the best reading is when the person says, I feel like I was talking to my best friend that I never knew I had. But there are times, and I read posts all the times where mediums say, I just couldn't connect, and then they're so hard on themselves. It happens, especially if you're practicing. It happens. It's happened to me, for paid readings. But the first thing I think is to know if and when you're not a fit. Maybe you're not feeling well. Maybe you had a fight with your partner right before the reading and it just threw you off, or there could be a million reasons. And it's really important to be able to convey that to your client, to be able to say, I don't think this is a good fit. I don't feel I'm able to read you. I'm not at my best today, instead of just spitting out anything random and giving those generic readings. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. If as a medium you're not feeling that it's the right connection, that should be finished there and then. You shouldn't push it forward. It's doing you a disservice. It's doing the person that you're reading for a disservice, and it's certainly doing spirit a disservice by even trying to go forward if that flow of energy, that flow of information just isn't there. Nobody's going to thank you for a reading that's based upon just guesswork and things like that. That's not reading. That's playing, and you shouldn't be in this business if you're even going down that route, I'm afraid.
Yes, of course. But, you'll be well respected if you do that. No one expects you to be perfect every time or perfect anytime.
Absolutely. If you've got the honesty to say, look, this just isn't working, I'll refund. If it's a paid reading, I will refund you the money, or we can try again another day when circumstances are different. That has got to hold so much more respect for everybody involved than trying to crack forward when it's just not working.
Mm-hmm. So let's see if we have any questions yet. I know
we've got
depending on the
Kendra.
group.
Yeah, we've
Oh,
got Kendra who's saying that she's always wondered about the ethics of remote viewing.
oh, that's a good one.
Yeah. And it depends, Kendra, what you mean by remote viewing, because I've come across quite a few different interpretations of what remote viewing is. Initially, when I heard about it, people talked about remote viewing being something that they did in the 60s, and it was all to do with the CIA and all sorts of weird and wonderful things like that.
Right. The government trained them.
Absolutely. So it depends what you mean by remote viewing, Kendra. If you're talking about being able to project your consciousness to a different place, then that obviously there are a lot of ethics involved with that, because you could be in massive evasion of somebody's privacy within doing that, and why would you want to as well? And looking at the purpose of doing that.
Right.
If you're talking about remote viewing where your consciousness remains within your body, but you are visualizing another place and just picking up on psychic vibrations from that place, which I feel sometimes people interpret as remote viewing, but their consciousness actually remains in their physical body, then again, it's why you're doing it in the first place. What is the purpose behind that whole experience? Whether it's to to get information. Why are you getting the information? It's the reasons behind it, to be honest. So if you can actually put in the comments, Kendra, what your thoughts are behind that might expand where we're going with that. Thank you. Laurie, was there anything else you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I think what you said, the reason behind it is really the most important part, and we can really use that same theory with most of the things we do in a reading. If someone asks certain questions, I always say it's for the benefit of your sitter. And if it's important for them to know, if it's something that they need to know, if it's personal to them and you have permission, then, go for it. I always use the example, let's say you were going psychic a little bit and someone says, I'm really curious what my neighbor's been up to. I'm wondering if they're drinking again. I just use this generic example. And my answer would be, this reading is about you. It's not my place to feel into them. It's, irrelevant. If your client said, my next door neighbor drives my little toddler to school every day, and I'm concerned that they're not okay, well, then you might look into it a little bit different. So not that you're going into someone else's business, but there has to be a need for your client's safety and for something that your client needs. So at the end of reading, sometimes I kind of naturally go to remote viewing, but I'll say, is it okay if I sort of just open my mind and see what comes? And I'll get different things about their home. I might see something outside that doesn't seem safe. I might see something that needs to be fixed. Those are the things that come to me. So it's about the need, who you're helping, and why. Do we ever do it to be nosy? No.
Yeah, Kendra's put a comment there about when readers say they remote view random people or celebrities. Yeah, why? That just,
No,
there is something
no.
really fundamentally wrong there. It's not just about the invasion of privacy, but the motives of the person doing it. You've got to ask why. It's not spiritual, because it's not about their spiritual journey. They're just being nosy. I'm
Right.
sorry. It's
I don't think
no
you'd really
right.
be able to, because
Know what
how would
people's
you even,
business.
and how would you validate, you know?
It's just, yeah. And Kendra does. Sorry, I think we're breaking. I don't know whether it's my signal or your signal here, but Kendra is saying she agrees the context makes a big difference,
Right.
and absolutely it does. Kristen, can clairvoyance be confused with remote viewing? Only if you don't know what the two are. I think if people are just new into spiritualism and understanding spirit, then there's a lot of confusion about the different terms. Absolutely, there's confusion about different terms. But if you know what you're doing, then there should be no confusion between clairvoyance and remote viewing at all. Clairvoyance is where you are linking with spirit in terms of a person that has had a human journey on this earth plane and has made their transition over to spirit, and mediums working with that person through a clairvoyant mediumship link. Remote viewing has got nothing to do with that. It's about where your consciousness is and being able to sense from where your consciousness is about the surroundings to that. An example of that would be, I know a couple of mediums where one supported a family where their daughter was in a war zone, not war zone, it was an earthquake zone, and she helped find where that daughter was. The other medium was involved in finding somebody that had gone into a river and unfortunately drowned, and he helped find their body. So it's about changing where your consciousness is to a physical area and being able to remote view that area to be able to find what you're looking for in that area as such. Very, very different from clairvoyance. Okay. Weezy Jones, unfortunately, we're not doing readings tonight, okay? We've got lots of readings on tomorrow, and we've had readings on earlier today. We're talking very much about ethics of mediumship tonight. So if you've got any questions about ethics of mediumship, knock yourself out, and hopefully we'll be able to answer those. And Colin, yeah, there's intention there. Okay. Laurie, have you come across other circumstances with remote viewing?
I really use it to, and again, we're all different. You know, I use it to, mostly I would say help people in their readings if there's some kind of issue in their home. I can just kind of put myself there, walk around. Even I've been known to tell people what's wrong with their cars. I kind of describe it, and I don't know anything about cars, but I'll describe the area and what it sounds like. And that's just, it comes natural to me. When I first started doing it, I didn't even know what the name of it was or what it was called. But if you're unsure, I would say if it feels like you're going through someone's wallet, don't do it. That's the example I use. Yeah. You're not going to go snooping.
Absolutely.
But you'll say, you know, is that okay? Can I go there? And what you're meant to see, you just naturally would. I don't think you'd really be able to if the other person isn't open to it. You know, I couldn't just sit here and go snooping around your house, nor would I want to. But if you were to say, there was a problem. You're wondering what this is or what that is, a noise, something like that. That's how I use it. I think were there any other questions? I can't see the questions or the comments.
Laurie, my signal, I think, is really, really bad here. Can you hear me okay?
I can, but I know you do break up a bit.
Okay. I didn't hear what your last bit was there.
I wonder if we should, I don't know, if we host it on mine, if that would be any better. Are people saying they can't hear us?
I'm just trying to reposition my laptop to get a clearer signal.
Oh, okay.
Oh, Colin's saying it's okay. And Kendrick, I can hear it, so it's just my end that's having problems. Okay. And Michelle saying it's okay and it's clear on YouTube as well. Fantastic. Okay. Right. If we had didn't come. Mary saying, I had another lucid dream about being around my brother. We're currently still basically strangled, but with a little bit of communication finally recently. Is that a form of remote viewing? I didn't have a conscious intention before I went to sleep. Lucid dreaming isn't remote viewing, but what could well have been happening at that point, your spirit will have connected with your brother's spirit, and not your conscious mind, but your spiritual beings, the essence of you, will have had some form of contact through that very vivid dream. And at that point, there will have been understanding and blending going on. And therefore, that's why you're finding things are starting to resolve themselves. So no, I wouldn't say that's remote viewing at all, because you haven't gone into an intention of putting your consciousness somewhere else to have a look at that place. What you've done there is actually essence to essence had communication. Okay. What I thought would be useful
about remote viewing. This is interesting.
It is, but it's very relevant in terms of the ethics, because it takes us to an extreme of what right we have in a reading to involve other people in that reading. And I know when people come for private readings, they will often want to know about another person's motives, what's happening with another person in their life, and etc. And I do think that can be on very dodgy ground, especially if you're being asked to psychically pick up, somebody, a lady comes in and wants to know whether her husband is having an affair. Actually, I'm sorry, but that is not something that we should be getting involved in as mediums. One, it's not mediumship, it's psychic work. Now, if you are advertising yourself as a psychic, then that is for entertainment. It's not about going into people's private lives and finding out information about people around them. If you're that worried about your husband, then why aren't you employing a private detective that works under very, very strict guidance and guidelines that won't get people into libel situations? Because there's all sorts of legal complications that could have fallouts over that I don't think people really realize what you could be getting yourselves involved in those kind of questions and those kind of delving into, especially as a psychic medium. Psychic reading is supposedly for entertainment. Obviously, mediumship is very different. It's about linking with spirit, in spirit, not spirit that's still got a carnate form, that's still got a body. Okay.
If you don't mind, go ahead.
Sorry, Laurie, go on.
I think that makes it a little bit interesting. Like I said, our backgrounds. I will do psychic readings, and I think that's a really good thing to touch upon. Again, it has to do with the need of your sitter. So will I answer, yeah, is my husband having an affair? I don't know. I don't know. I don't care. But there's a need. Your sitter always has a need, and often other things will come up. So if that's on their mind, you might pick up that your sitter is really struggling. You might pick up on depression. You might pick up on anxiety. And that might lead to a different conversation about how you can help that person that's in front of you, not necessarily go snooping around someone else's life. Like when someone will die, I have a lot of issue with that. When I'd say about 10 years ago, a medium once told me that I was going to die very young. And I said, well, when? And she said, well, I'm not supposed to tell you, but it's young. And let me tell you, that affected me for years. That took me a really long time to get over. I mean, that was damaging. And I share that because we all make mistakes. But please don't make that one. And she went on to say, well, if you change things, that could change, but the way I see things now, and that's just ridiculous. That's what gives us a bad reputation as a psychic. That's not what psychics do. Psychics feel into the need of the sitter. We connect to someone's soul. We feel into what they need. And then, of course, mediumship, we know already. But absolutely, I would not tell someone, because you know what? You won't know if you're right until it happens. And then what?
Yeah. Yeah. And if that touches into all the way back to that issue about a person asking about if their husband's having an affair, because if they're told yes, then that person could go out and divorce their husband because the seed of doubt is then sown. And bless them, that poor husband may well not be having an affair at all. Okay. And the whole relationship is destroyed because somebody senses something that's totally wrong. Okay, all they're picking up is the lady's worry that they're having an affair, and because they're picking up that worry, they're assuming that it's then fact, and it's not. So it's very, very, and as Colin said, I'm just trying to find his comment about negative information.
So what kind of negative information?
Giving information what they deem negative in nature during the reading. No, you shouldn't be looking at that, because you could well be wrong. You could be picking up the information and interpreting it through your eyes and just putting your interpretation on it as a reader, and it be totally misleading and wrong for the person. Kristen, again, here I was told my partner would die around his birthday, and tragically, and when I find him, don't touch him. For years I had intense worry. And that's
sorry to hear that.
Massive impact on people's lives. And basically, whoever told you that, Kirsten, is responsible. And I think that is such a key thing for mediums and psychics to take on board. You are responsible for the reactions that you are giving the people, and you should be responsible for that. And it's where I would agree that there needs to be better oversight over some of the things that are being said in readings, because they're just wrong. Kendra, again, my sister's had a similar experience. They told her when my parents would die, and it lived with us for years.
Yeah.
How, you know, and that's just so wrong, so sad. When readings and mediumship is about, as Colin's just said, you're psychic, Colin. Readings are about upliftment, they're about love, they're about support. How does saying to a person when somebody is going to die going to help them? How, okay, you might know, just keep your mouth shut. You don't have to say it. A very good friend of mine, her sister was ill. I knew she was going to pass. I didn't tell her sister that. Why on earth would I? I was heartbroken when she was passed because she was a good friend of mine. But my friend didn't need to know about a sister. That was something that she had to go through and work through and all the rest of it. It was part of her experience. It served no purpose. It would have been just purely my ego being satisfied by me saying to her, oh, by the way, she's going to die in November, whatever. You got to think of your motives. You really got to think of your motives if you're going to be doing that kind of reading. Why? Is it about you or is it about the reader? If it's about you, get out of the business, because this is a spiritual business. It's about support, it's about love, it's about help. It's not about grooming your ego at all. Okay, sorry, I'm going on a right rant, aren't I?
That's okay. Some people say if you're given the information, the sitter needs to know it. And I'm going to agree and disagree with that. It's up to us to know how to say certain things. And sometimes we're given information so we understand the bigger picture and we understand the situation that really is, that's going on. So if we're seeing that, do we tell them? No. But I'm trying to think of a good example of when we're shown things. I have an example. Someone was reading me once, and they began to describe the death of a loved one in every gory little detail that she experienced. So much so that I was getting sick from it. Now, just because she saw it, did she need to say it? No. She may have needed to see certain details to understand how the person passed, to understand how delicate it was, to understand how difficult it would be for me. But it's really important to know how to deliver certain information, when to keep your mouth shut, and to really feel into, I can't say enough, feel into the need of the person. Is what you're saying healing or helpful? That's always a good thing to go by.
Yeah. And it's a general rule of life, really. If you are a spiritual person and you want to live a spiritual life, then part of that responsibility is ensuring that what you are saying to others meets certain criteria. Is what I'm going to say going to be helpful to somebody? Is what I'm going to do going to be helpful to somebody? Is what I'm going to say going to actually speak of love and support? Because if it's not, why am I saying it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you're not sure why you're saying it, because it's not love, it's not support, then that's an issue that you need to work through with your own shadow work and your deeper spiritual journey. And we can learn so much through this. It's not that we should be just saying, oh, no, you don't do it, and that's it. you don't do it, but you think about why you don't do it. And you learn through that process. It's part of that whole awakening process that you go through in this whole mediumship and psychic arena. It's about a spiritual journey.
Yeah.
And mediumship is just such a small part of it, and psychic work is even smaller part of it. We're on this spiritual journey to evolve our own being, our own spirit, our own essence. And therefore, we need to be taking note of all of these experiences and reflect on, well, what is it teaching me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And if we're saying it in love, if we're saying it in light, if we're doing it because it supports other people, fantastic. We're on that light path.
Yeah.
But if we're saying it because it just feels right, actually, hang on. No, why does that feel right? Is there something in your past that has meant that negativity somehow feels right? And if it does, what's created that? And what can you do about it? What can you learn about it? What can you learn about yourself with it?
And
so it's a much bigger picture.
We spoke about actually offering a class on this. And I think it's really important not just to know about the information you should or shouldn't say, but the way to deliver it. I know people get caught up in the actual words to use, which is so important to just practice. And I know with the class, we were just going to throw out some examples of things. You get it, this information, how do you say it? How do you describe certain things without insulting people? What terms do you use? That has a really big, plays a really big role in it, though actually how you deliver it.
Absolutely. Colin has an interesting question. What's your thoughts in the area of money and ethics in relation to courses, readings, or demonstrations? And I think this will be different for different people according to the culture that you're from and the background that you've grown up with religion and spirit. Laurie, what's your views on this?
Right off the top of my head, I want to say different countries have very different views as well. I've spoken to many UK teachers and mediums, and they say their students charge more than them. It's really interesting. I always tended to be on the lower side. Money is something that I've never been very comfortable with. I wish I didn't need it. I wish we didn't have it. I wish there could just be exchanges of energy with everything, but that's a whole other story. But I actually received some pressure from other mediums in my area saying, you're charging too little. You're making us look bad. You need to be up around this price. That might be too much for me to get into. But people will say, why are you charging? Let's start with this. People will say, why are you charging at all? It's a gift you have. Well, if we're doing it full time, it's keeping us from doing other work and we have to pay our bills. So that's a really good explanation for charging at all. The amount you're charging, I'm still trying to figure that out, why some people are so expensive. And you'll find mediums that charge nothing that are amazing.
You see, I've got a similar perspective, but I don't believe what we've got is a gift. I believe everybody has the ability. Some people's ability, like music, is more genetically there than others. Musical ability is a gift, artistical ability is a gift, but it's a natural gift, yeah. And I feel mediumship is exactly the same as that. And like if you're a musician, you have spent time, you've spent money developing that gift, that ability, to a point that people appreciate it and want to have time with you with that gift, that ability. Nobody's saying to musicians that they shouldn't be paid, right? Similarly, artists have spent time, money on courses, etc., developing their skills, developing. Nobody's saying that you shouldn't pay for a painting. Then nobody is saying that you should be giving paintings away if you spent hours and hours and hours and days and days and days on these.
Right.
Why is mediumship any different? You go to a Catholic church, priests are paid. You go to an Islamic place, the imams paid. You go to any religion, the people who are the representatives of that religion are paid by their religious bodies to do the religious duties. Now, what is the difference? What is the difference? I've never really understood why people feel that it shouldn't be paid. Now, I grew up from my 20s in a spiritualist church. I was president of Westford Spiritualist Church for a couple of years. We always gave the mediums money for expenses, the traveling expenses. Now, invariably, it was more than what cost them in petrol, because there's depreciation of the car and there is their time. But to be fair, it rarely was enough for, minimum wage plus the thing. But they were given money for that, okay? And that's a church circumstance. Now, the people who ran the church, we never got paid. I spent days every week sorting out mediums, booking mediums, being booking secretary, running the church and chairing the meeting. People who run the churches never get paid, but the mediums going to the churches. Okay, if you do a psychic supper at a church, then you get, the last psychic supper I did, I got £40 for 2 hours. That paid work. So why aren't we expecting to pay for mediumship and psychic readings? The people have paid a lot of money in going to courses. If I would really question any medium that is trying to sell readings that haven't done courses and paid for courses, because I think there's mediumship and readings, as we've been discussing tonight around the ethics of it, is much more than just the ability to link in with spirit. There's responsibility there, and it's learning about what those responsibilities are, how you should be setting out a room that is conducive to reading, private readings, etc., should all be covered by being trained properly to do that. That's money. It costs money. People will charge to do courses, and that's right, because whoever's running the course, they spend time setting the course up, planning the course, running the course, paying the advertising costs that are associated with courses, paying the Zoom costs. It's not cheap. If they're doing it through StreamYard is actually wanting £3,000 from me for next year, for a year's subscription to StreamYard. I can't afford that. There's no way that the money that I get through stars and things like that, it's like less than £100 a year that is cover that. So I'm going to have to cut down on StreamYard and change the way I'm doing StreamYard. All of those costs have to be taken into consideration. Absolutely. If you're doing readings from your home, then there's lighting considerations, that internet costs, all of those things like that. And why should we as mediums be paying for you to have a reading from us? And that's effectively what is being expected if you're not expecting to pay. Now, I know people will think, well, hang on, you know, on Find Me a Medium online live psychic readings, we do free readings every day. But actually there's purpose behind that, because that reaches out to more people. For me, it means that people are seeing what mediumship should be looking like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that the people that are doing readings on my group are good mediums, and this is what mediumship should look like. And if you're getting mediumship readings that don't look like this, then you need to be questioning, why am I paying for this? Yeah.
Right.
But also it's a great platform for the mediums that are doing readings on my group, because it means that people can see them before they buy a reading from them. And I think it's important too, that, you know, you don't just pay somebody for a reading when you've never seen that what they do. You know, you wouldn't buy a painting without seeing it. You wouldn't pay to go to a concert without hearing the music first. So, you know, and they're just mini readings as well.
And it's also respect.
Sorry, I love that.
You know, it's showing the person respect as well. And one thing I say is, how do you put a price on talking to your loved one? How do you put a price on talking to your favorite person in the world that's not physically here anymore? So I think that's worth a lot.
Absolutely. And as Kendra points out, you know, by me doing this, I'm not spending my time with my family. So I'm taking time out with my family to do this.
Right.
And I'm not getting paid for this. But I feel it's important. So I do it. But, you know, that people will do, you know, by doing readings, people taking time out of their life, and they should be paid for their time. Yeah.
Hey, do we have any other questions? I think we covered a lot.
Any other questions coming up? One of the, since there's no other questions come up, one of the other ethics questions that comes across on my pages and groups at times is about practice circles, and how those are run. And again, one would expect in a good practice circle that ethics is something that is covered in those circles, and the opportunity to help someone understand the ethics of a message should be an important feature of practice circles. Vivian is saying, we choose mediumship as a career. It's about healing, and we spend a huge amount of money and time training and developing. That's true.
Yeah.
It's no different from any other profession that helps and heals. Absolutely, Vivian. Doctors are some of the highest paid people in this country. I don't know whether they are in America, but they are in the UK, and it recognises actually they have trained for years, as many of our mediums have. And I'm not saying that mediums should be paid the same as doctors at all. I'm just saying that there is a professionalism there. If you're paid for something, then there's a professional standard. And it's interesting in the UK that because you're paying for it, then you then have rights, and complaints can be made to the advertising agency and things like that if you've been missold something, and that's where the legal boundaries come across in the UK with mediumship, and it's about the legal aspects of paying for a service.
Right.
So,
well, thank you, Colin, for plugging our magazine.
absolutely, great magazine.
But yes, absolutely, check out the magazine.
Yeah, Mary. So, charging a fee that puts readings out for each of people on the edge of surviving. Absolutely. Conversely, it would have no problem charging more for those who can afford it. Absolutely. The interesting thing is how you know which person falls into which group. Because sometimes people who have money because they're very tight with it.
That is true.
Have money because they just spend it. And I know I'm being frivolous and making outlandish claims there, but you get my point. How do you know? But I do take your point, Mary. If somebody is in need, and interestingly, look for if you're a person that is in desperate need for reading, as well as going on to the lives and the free live ones. You'll get a mini reading. You don't get full readings on the lives, but charity ones are invariably cheaper. So like over the last couple of weeks, we've had Links to Heaven and what's the other group that they've linked in with? The Higher House. They've worked together on a charity one, and they I think it was only £10 or £15 for a private reading with that. Similarly, Dead King recently has done some private readings with groups of mediums. And again, I think it was only £10 or £12 for private reading. So it ties into, if you don't have the money to afford a private reading at normal rates, then look out for the charity ones, because they do tend to be a lot cheaper. Oh, Colin, thank you. Yes.
All right. So now let's talk about our stuff. Tell me about your book. People are talking about it. I want to hear about it.
Okay. My book. This is the old version. It's got the different cover. It's back to front. Universal Spirit Awakening. It's a book of the history. Tells you about the history of evolving, of understanding of what spirit is, across different religions, across the world, etc. Just lightly touching on it, but it goes into looking at developing an awareness of self and the questions that we ask of ourselves and our understanding of who we are in that process of awakening. There's lots of exercises in there as well that you can use. It's available through Amazon, and you can, wherever you are in the world really, you can get it off Amazon. Just look up Universal Spirit Awakening and it will be there for you. Okay. Awesome. And I'm going to be chatting with Colin about it tomorrow.
Nice. Very nice. And as far as the magazine, if you haven't seen it yet, edifyyoursoulmagazine.com. I am always recruiting new writers. We have advertising available. This last month was dedicated to domestic violence awareness. We have some really great interviews in there. Next month is surviving loss. So losing a loved one and or pets. I don't think you knew that yet, but that's your topic, Veronica, to write for.
Okay.
That's your article in soon.
Pets is an interesting one, because the grief process is absolutely the same. Go through in any loss.
Sometimes it's harder, yeah. So it'll be definitely some people will talk about pets specifically, but like you said, it's all grief.
Yeah, it's all grief. And if we can help with that in any shape or form, that's a gift, to be able to help people that need help in those situations. That is a gift to be able to offer that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So,
Lynn is asked, am I still going to be doing classes regarding the exercises in here? I did do one and only 2 people turned. So it kind of put so I've gone on to doing totem animals now. So I've got this whole thing about totem animals going to be coming out soon. So I got distracted into that. But to be honest, the totem animals came from awakening, because it's a way of working with ourselves that's to the side, and some people need the to the side rather than the direct. Working with totem animals and understanding the animal characteristics and their influences on us. And thanks to Fulvia, who pinpointed that maybe I should be looking at astrology linked with that. Whole new chapters come out of that one as well. So I'm still working on the book. That there's 127 different totem animal cards, but I've been looking at prices of those, and it's extortionate to get them published. It's not like on Amazon, you upload it and basically people buy it and Amazon prints it off. But with cards, there isn't a similar system. You've literally got to buy a whole load of cards and then be able to sell them. And that's very expensive to do. So I need some money to be able to do that. Anyway, and Colin's saying again about Edify or soulmagazine.com, and it's a wonderful magazine with great content, writers, mediums and healers. It is super, and it is free.
Yes.
But if you want to advertise in it, that's how it's funded. So if you want to advertise your services, then you get in contact with Laurie and say that you're interested in advertising your services. Because it's free, it gets out there way all around the world. we know from the people on here tonight, this magazine gets all around the world. So if you want to advertise yourself, it's a great place to advertise yourself, and your money in paying for that advertising actually means that the magazine itself can keep going. So anything else before we finish, because we're just on the hour mark now? Can I just ask people that are watching, are you interested in me and Laurie actually running a course next week? It was next week, we said, or is it 2 weeks time?
Next week. Next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday. Let us know, because I must admit, putting on this other one and only a couple of people come in as kind of, because it's a lot of work setting these things up, planning them, all the rest of it. And obviously working around my calendar, I've got my daily lists to do every day. And if people aren't interested, then we won't need to do all that work. But if people are interested, I don't mind doing it. I would enjoy doing it. People are interested.
In the comments. Hopefully people will see it later. Let us know.
Let us know quickly so we know that we're planning for next week and I can get that advertised. We said we charge a $5 for it. Is that right?
Say again?
We said that we'd charge a $5 for it. Kristen says, where's the course info? Well, that's one of the things that I'll need to put together. It will be about the ethics of mediumship in a rather than a
practical stuff.
It will be a proper course.
And we were thinking the same time, maybe a little bit earlier.
Yeah, a little bit earlier. It's what Colin's saying. What's the course? Is what one session or several? It would just be one session. I think it would just be the one session for a £5, and it would be going into all of the aspects we've spoken to about tonight, but actually much more structured, with opportunities for you to practice how you would actually share information.
We did say, I'm sorry, it would be 2 Eastern on the 30th. So that would be 7 UK?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it would be on Zoom. So it's obviously a lot more personal, etc., than on a live like this. Okay. So let us know, Colin. Brilliant. If you're interested in that, and we'll get everything planned and get that out. Okay.
I put that in there, so we'll see. Okay.
Laurie, anything else to finish off?
No, thank you. This was great. And thank you everyone for joining us.
Yeah. Interesting questions. Thank you for your time, and thank you ever so much, Laurie. And hopefully we'll see each other next week.
Yeah, that would be great. Let us know in the comments, please. Okay. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.